Hello, hello, and welcome to the Watch Dads podcast, season 2. So excited that you are here. So thankful that you have continued to follow. If you haven't had a chance and it's your first time, jump back into season 1. Make sure to get a chance to read through and watch and listen to all the great dads and fathers that we've had on the show. But today, we have a phenomenal brother here with us, somebody that I truly respect and I appreciate, and I've learned a lot from. We've been hitting it off in a couple different areas. I'll dive into that in a second.
Yeah, definitely.
But welcome, Trey, to the show.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate
and if I
you.
could give you your flowers right now,
Uh-oh.
this is a much needed platform environment for fathers. I've been secretly watching, subscribing and listening, because these are, and we'll jump into it, but these are things that like I wish I had when I was a young father. So I just appreciate you giving folks this platform, men this platform, to just express, to tell others behind us. So you kind of think of what our forefathers and foremothers did. They share wisdom and knowledge.
Absolutely.
And you're giving folks that opportunity to do that. So I thank you, brother.
Man, I appreciate that. I appreciate that, Trey, for sure.
Definitely.
It was a conversation turned into reality. So
100%.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
You're doing well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, tell the people a little bit about you, Trey, and your family.
Man.
And, I know you got a beautiful family, but tell us a little bit about you and career.
So I tell folks they know me as Trey Hartley.
Yeah.
But my financial aid name is Roosevelt Hartley III.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
I don't think I've ever known that.
Yeah. So you won't hear it unless you're a bill collector or somebody I owe some money to.
So we don't want to hear that name.
Yeah, you don't want to hear that name. So I am the third, of course, of my father and then my grandfather. My great grandfather was a lover of President Roosevelt.
Okay.
So that kind of where the name comes from. Finally was able to kind of understand it after he passed.
Yeah.
So maybe 6 minutes out the womb, my cousin Kathy, as I've been told, was like, he don't look like a Roosevelt. He's not going to be a Roosevelt. So we're gonna name him Trey.
Okay.
So Trey. And I've been going by Trey since then.
Nice.
So I am here in Columbus. Went to high school at Eastmore High School, not the academy that is known, the original.
The original.
Yeah, graduated many moons ago. Went to college here. Been married 15 years to my bride Alana, and I have 2 boys, Brylan and Brennan, who are 14 and 8.
Woo.
So yeah, career wise, so I think I just celebrated my 3rd year. I'm at a architect company here in Columbus, Moody Nolan. Was at Nationwide for over 20 years.
Wow.
Had a conversation with the Lord, and the Lord said it's time to jump. I jumped. I don't know how much time we got, but God moved in that way to get me to where I'm at.
That's
so
awesome.
I've been in finance my whole life.
Yeah.
From between churches, small businesses, mid-sized corporations, and of course Fortune 100 company like Nationwide. So I've been in that financial space my whole life. So that's me. That's me.
That's awesome.
We already talked about a hobby of mine. I am a bowler.
Okay.
I have here's my joke that I was going to tell you. I believe I was conceived in a bowling alley.
Wait.
And the reason why I say that because I was in a bowling alley 4 or 5 nights a week. Just growing up, so it was get off the school bus
and head to
the lanes. My mom and dad were in bowling lanes,
nice.
Literally 4 or 5 nights a week. So all the bad food habits probably started there. The alley burgers and fries and all that. But that's where I fell in love with bowling.
That's awesome.
To the point where like couldn't afford bowling pins, so I would empty out 2-liter bottles of pop.
Okay.
Some that we drunk, some that we didn't. And make pins and use tennis balls and softballs and roll on my grandma's hardwood floors.
Wow.
And that's kind of where I fell in love with the sport.
Okay.
Very jealous now that you get scholarships for bowling and all those things, man. But it's something that I thoroughly love. So if I have a stress reliever, it's definitely bowling.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely
absolutely. And
bowling.
and I mean that's where we met.
Yeah, yep.
Was out on the
Right.
league
Yeah,
and
definitely,
going. And Trey
definitely.
is
Yeah.
definitely a phenomenal bowler. I am definitely the person that's bringing up the rear. Just want to let y'all know before we get too far into that.
There were many nights I was like, B, I appreciate you, bro, because I didn't bring it. So that still stays true, man.
Oh man, listen,
Not
no.
as bad as he thinks.
No, bowling is it's a stress reliever. It's a
It
great place
is.
for conversation.
It is. It
A
is. It
great
is.
place
It
for
is.
just breaking it down on like,
Yeah.
hey man, this is what's happening
Mm-hmm.
for the week
Yeah. Yeah.
and going from there. How
Yeah.
how does bowling or how has it
Mm-hmm.
impacted just your life? Do your boys like to bowl?
No.
No.
So I don't. So I will say the problem with me is I'm a competitor, super
Okay.
competitive
Okay.
in all things, cards. Now we've been in places
Yeah.
where we've seen I don't get that competitive,
Yeah.
but there's an internal burn and desire that I have to be good and great at all things, even bowling.
Yeah.
And I think that is kind of what steers them away. Like, okay, Dad, I just want to just throw the ball down the lane. I ain't trying to curve my hand, hook, and take all these steps, do it this way. I just want to do it for the fun. Um, so that's kind of the thing about with me and my boys. We're different in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've done it because it's always been I would say it's discipline for me.
Okay.
It produced a discipline in me. Like, if your feet are off, this is going to happen.
Yeah.
If your hand control is off, if your speed is off. So it was an early form of discipline for me,
Okay.
that I didn't think I needed and gained from it. But as you know, there's the frustrations of life. But
Yeah.
you always have to go back to the basics and what you know to get a good ball down the lane. That's very applicable to life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
No, I,
yeah,
I agree with you so much on that. I
yeah.
mean, I can think of so many different nights where
Hmm.
we were bowling and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and in the league and those little things of what's happening on the outside,
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
you're not paying
Right,
attention, they
right.
can impact
100%.
those little small things that you
Yeah,
have to have right. And I
100%.
think you're absolutely right. It applies
100%.
to
Hmm.
every level
Hmm.
of your life.
100%. 100%.
When I think about even like raising a kid,
Mhm.
the impact of what you do at work,
Yep.
where
Mhm.
you're at, and how
Mhm.
you are
Yep.
impacts how they are,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
impacts that, or it
Yep.
can at
It
least
can.
impacts that. So
Mhm.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Definitely.
bowling has been the hobby all your
Yeah, the
life.
hobby.
Has
Yeah.
been life. I'll
Yeah.
say life. I
Yeah.
don't know if hobby
It's a
is
life.
the right. It's a lifestyle.
It's a life thing. Yeah, it's a
Okay,
life
fair
thing.
enough. So your boys aren't into bowling. What's the relationship for you all? What do you all get into?
So my 14-year-old and I go back to this story when me and my wife brought him home
Okay.
for our first child. We put him on the floor. We just moved into our house, and we're like, we just pray we don't kill you.
Yeah,
Like we had
just want to make it.
we had nothing. Um, so there's again, I believe there's a blessing in all good and what we deem to be bad situations.
Okay.
There's something to learn out of all of them. So I've shared with you plenty of times. My oldest is autistic.
Yeah.
Um, so he was diagnosed about the age of 5. And we always knew not something was off, but he was just different.
Yeah.
And even what I would consider a good different.
Mm-hmm.
At 2 or 3, we would get phone calls from babysitters and say, "This dude is reading," and we're like, "Whatever."
Yeah.
No, he's reading.
Right.
So one day we were at Lowe's, um, and yeah, we were at Lowe's, and I was just picking up some outdoor supplies. It was early spring, and either it was a sign that was on the shelf or up in the rafters that said, 100% guarantee or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he read that, and I'm like, I call everybody on the phone. I'm like, call my wife. You been in Lowe's? Oh, might be Home Depot or Lowe's, one of
Mm-hmm.
them. You been here with him? No, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't. All right, I'm gonna call my mother-in-law. Have y'all been into this hardware store with him?
Right.
No. This boy know how to read. So it hit me early, like, oh, this dude does know how to read. And I got to give shout outs to my mother-in-law um who's a teacher, and she read. We
Right.
all read to him.
Right.
But she was our first educator in,
Yeah.
in his life. So kind of tying that back to the interest. So early understanding that, like, this dude is not me.
Mm-hmm.
I played sports from age 5, so I couldn't play no more. I'm still bowling. That's a sport.
Right.
But that was my niche to my father,
Mm-hmm.
um, at the time. if I wasn't playing sports, then there was really no relationship.
Mm.
So seeing that that was not his thing. So we threw him out there, play some flag football. My man is picking grass, probably counting how many molecules are in the grass. And I'm like,
You're
yeah,
like,
this ain't gonna be it. Okay.
this ain't it for you.
And as a father, it's like, we have that internal drive
Mm-hmm.
of, you're gonna be a athlete, you're gonna do all these things.
Uh-huh.
And I learned quick that wasn't gonna be my story
Yeah.
with my oldest. So I had to find things, and it was a struggle.
Yeah.
But he is totally gifted in the artistry of music.
Awesome.
He would take after church, he would record, well, during church, and we didn't know he was doing this. He would record the service, and the praise team and the band play that back when he got home, because he had a drum set. He would just drum. And one thing you learn about autistic children,
Mm-hmm.
they always have to be moving and
Mhm.
things like that. He would just in the air just be. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? We're gonna get you a drum set.
Right.
Got him one of my call him a little Fisher Price drum set. Blew through that thing in a week. Like,
Wow.
blew it up.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I was like, oh, so we gotta buy something serious. So we ended up buying him something. Really went to a music store,
Wow.
got him some real stuff, and he just started going at it. So he doesn't drum anymore
Mm-hmm.
on an actual. He does still air drum, but he's in the strings at camp now. So he's been in the violin for going on 4 years.
Wow. That's awesome.
Absolutely loves it. So I've had to find those kind of outlets where I don't have that gift of music.
Right.
God knew what he was doing. I wanted to be. I wanted to play drums. I wanted to be a musician, but he was like, "Yeah,
That's
nah,
not gonna be for you.
You wouldn't be using that to glorify me. So now I'm gonna take that away from you.
So
You know,
we know you ain't gonna use that the right way.
You want it for the other reasons. So had to come down to that level of, again, understanding after some struggles,
Yeah.
internal battles. So he's into the violin, into swim. Just recently, 8th grade, started running track.
Okay.
Me and my wife were like, "You want to do what?" Okay.
All right.
Never done it before.
Right,
Cool.
right.
But out of 7 races in 8th grade, he placed first 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
And placed at least a couple 2 times.
That's awesome.
So I'm like, oh, maybe there's something here.
Yeah.
So I've as from him perspective, he's a historian. I remember going to there's a children's museum in Indiana,
Mhm.
Indianapolis.
Mhm.
And my son, and again, going back to this, the beautiful thing about those that are autistic,
Mm-hmm.
their minds are so creative. Their minds, they absorb everything.
Yeah.
They see the lens of the world from many places that we don't see.
Yep.
There was a time, and he probably could still do it, but there was a time he could rattle off every president, his spouse, the spouses,
Wow.
the years that they were in office, the year they died, and what they died of.
Wow.
Now, I graduated high school, college, decent, my 3.0.
Right.
But I did enough to,
Did enough to make it.
Did enough to make it. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say I was just, I was just always in the books.
Yeah.
I did enough. Cliff Notes were a great. I don't even know if they have those anymore. But yeah, Cliff Notes were a great thing. But he is as a musician crafts
Mm-hmm.
their gift. He crafts his gift in research and history.
That's awesome.
So I had to come. Sorry about that.
Mhm.
Had to come to those levels
Mhm.
of, all right, again, it's not gonna be a football day,
Yeah.
but we're about to go to the museum.
Yeah.
We're about to do those things. So that's where I have fallen in love with him from that perspective.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, being our first,
Mm-hmm.
not understanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I go back to, he was in the 2nd grade, and he would just get up in the middle class and just go sit in another area. And we finally realized he was like, well, this cat, bud, it,
Mm-hmm.
them, I know that stuff. I'm bored.
Yeah.
So we with our talk with the counselor, they ended up having him teach the 3rd grade class, read to the 3rd grade class, and he was in the 2nd grade.
Wow.
So and the progression happened. So 3rd grade, he was reading 5th grade.
Yeah.
So those kind of things that again it was a how could I say this? It was a shot in the dark. I'm like, what are we gonna do with this guy?
Right.
there's just another level of love that I had to have that's not
Yeah.
related to sports.
Yeah.
Now, he's gotten better. He's gotten into sports as he's gotten older, but it's a mental
It's a mental
thing.
thing. Yeah.
It's a mental thing. Now, my little guy, he is, as he calls himself, mini me. He is absolutely me at that age. We call him the young terrorist.
Okay.
Great kid,
Yeah.
great kid. He's a
Yeah.
great kid, but I tell him often, I'm not negotiating with a terrorist, man. Like I'm not doing that, man. But he is me, and and we may jump into this later, man. It's hard parenting the you out of your child,
Mm. Yeah.
and
No, I feel that one.
yeah, and I do that with him, and even my oldest. But that little
Yeah.
guy, I'm like, you are talking to yourself, dude.
Right.
So yeah,
Right. And
yeah.
say how do I coach myself?
How do I
Yeah.
coach myself?
That
Yeah,
is
yeah,
that is interesting.
yeah,
I want to double tap real quick
yeah. Please
because
do.
I'm gonna say in the Black community,
Hmm.
right? When it comes to autism specifically, there are a lot of stigmas. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot
Hmm.
of concern. I have a younger cousin that
Yeah.
has
Hmm.
autism, and
Hmm.
he was my first personal
Hmm.
experience with autism
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what's best,
Hmm.
what's not, right?
Right.
And how do we communicate? How do we kind of go? And he's, he'll be six or he just turned 6.
Hmm.
So we're still working through a lot of those things with his parents, are phenomenal in doing that and invested in
Right.
him.
Hmm.
But for you
Hmm.
all, how was that experience of having a young
Hmm.
autistic
Yeah.
black son
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
this day and
Yeah.
age? Like
Yeah.
how did that go for
Yeah.
you?
So, that's where it started. It started in the classroom. We're
Okay.
getting now again, I am a introvert with selective extrovert tendencies,
Okay.
okay? I get my energy and source from just being alone,
Yeah.
being quiet. But if I'm in a presence or a group of people that I absolutely adore and love, like,
Yeah.
I'm going to be very extroverted.
Yep.
So hence why when you and I get together,
Yeah.
like we vibe, like, and I
Uh-huh.
appreciate that about you, like, because that's not for everybody.
Yeah. No, good to know.
So early on, we're getting notes from his teacher, and she would label behavioral issues.
Mm.
So me being, and I'll kind of start with this, um, and you asked this in one of your questions, um, and one of my struggles. I'm a helicopter parent,
Okay.
and I struggle with that
Yeah.
because I realized that as a young boy, I didn't feel like. Now, let me preface this.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was present.
Mm-hmm.
She just had to work.
Right.
Dad left a long time ago, so she had to provide.
Mm-hmm.
So not knocking what my mother
Mm-hmm.
does or did, um, but I knew, like, I didn't want that childhood,
Right.
so I unfortunately said, "Oh, I'm about to be that parent
Right.
that is gonna be at everything, that's gonna do everything, that's
Yeah.
gonna see everything,
Yeah.
and it is what it is." So sometimes it's my old self that I be fighting, and we'll get into that later on.
Yeah.
Um, so getting those words, like it when you think of black boys and you say the word behavior,
Mm-hmm.
like it fired me up because I
Yeah.
said, now I know this boy is not in there calling you out your name,
Right.
not here jumping, being disrespectful, tearing up your class. So I asked the direct question: what does behavior mean to
Right.
you? What is he doing?
Right.
So that's when she came back, and said, well, he's getting up in the middle of class and just going off. And this was before the diagnosis.
Yeah.
He's just getting up and going and sitting down. So, as my wife tells me, I am the school parent, and I take pride in that. I
Yeah.
do,
Yeah.
I do, because I want them to see they have a black dad at
That's
home
right.
that's active, that's there, that
Mm-hmm.
cares, that
Mm-hmm.
loves, and I'll be there in a heartbeat
That's it.
if I
Beating
need
the stigma.
beating the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
I have this T-shirt, and I'll get back on track. Sorry, you just you
You
just brought
good.
something
You
else.
good.
I had this Ghostbusters shirt.
Okay.
Now I watched the Ghostbusters, not enough to recite any lines like other movies,
Yeah.
but I always feel like I was chasing a ghost in
Mm.
my own personal life, chasing, because there was a point in time before I had kids, my father has said the Hartley men do not take care of their children.
Mm.
Said that at a young age. I'm about 14.
Wow.
And that has I hear that echo in everything I do. So my downfall is I'm a helicopter parent because I don't want my children to say,
Right.
dad never took care of us, dad was never present, all those
Right.
things. So I get myself in trouble with that. But I'll come back to that. So you get this label, you get this teacher telling you your child has this behavior issues.
Mm-hmm.
I'm triggered because behavior can show up in many ways.
Yeah.
When I hear behavior, I'm thinking he's wilding out.
Right.
She tells me, yeah, he's just doing X, Y, and Z. So I respond back in an email. I said, ma'am, this is not a behavior issue.
Right.
I said, it sounds like he's bored.
Mm-hmm.
So we go into the lesson. We go into go into the lessons with her and bring in the counselor, and that's what it was. He was advanced
Mm-hmm.
mentally for first grade. It might have been kindergarten, first grade. He was too advanced for what he was learning. Like I said, he know
Right.
what blue is. He know how to spell those things. He know what a cat is. He knows he has all those things.
Right.
He's done that since he's been in the womb.
Right.
So he was bored.
Right.
So let's not label that as a behavior.
Mm.
So that was my start with the autism space.
Okay.
Again, knew something was just, again, I don't like to use the word off, but different.
Different.
Something was different.
Yeah.
So as we got on, and I will never forget, and she'll probably never see this podcast, but she works in the Gahanna School District. Miss McCleary, second grade teacher.
Okay.
She pulled us to the side, and I had sent her notes through the years,
Yeah.
just again thanking her. But Miss McCleary, she says, "Yeah, something's off. I don't think it's, I don't think it's, I don't really think it's autism, but it could be."
Mm-hmm.
She was the first one to put a word to it.
Wow.
So by her giving us that word, she said, "Here, this is what you need to do. Start this process early. At least find out."
Right.
So we get thrown into the Children's Hospital Autism Center, which is a whirlwind for those that have questions about uh, nationwide children autism.
Yeah.
I am your man to give you information because I've been doing it since 2015. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand if you need me, I'm a resource.
There you go.
So that was the start with testing and questionnaires and all these things. And he was finally diagnosed in 2015 of being on the spectrum, but he's high functioning.
Mm.
Okay, so when you see him, in a group, you'd be like, he's not, but he has quirks. He has some quirks about
Mm-hmm.
him. Organization, but I got those issues too. Um, just some life skills,
Mm-hmm.
things that you just have to tap on. But again, he was a hard
Yeah.
diagnosis for the specialists and all those things. So when it came to now medicine,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, me and my wife, we did not agree.
Yeah.
I'm not about to put this medicine in my baby, and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, and I commend her for this thought process. If you had to take something to save your life,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't you do it?
Mm-hmm.
I'm fighting the air at that point.
You are by yourself on
whatever,
this.
whatever. I'm not listening.
Right. Right.
But I
Right.
heard her.
Yeah.
I heard her,
Yeah.
and I'm like, absolutely right. If I have high blood pressure, I'm gonna exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to you for exercising, my
I
brother, my
appreciate
man,
you. I
looking good.
appreciate you. Thank you.
If we got high cholesterol, we're gonna take something. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
do some changes in our lives.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me like, all right, if this is gonna help him stay functioning,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not just here's medicine and go about it. Like
Mhm.
that's not happening.
Right.
We have him in therapy. We're
Mhm.
doing those things to keep him again a functioning young man, a functioning young black man in this
Mhm.
society. So I finally, not saying I acquiesced it, but I kind of, all right, Trey, like
Yeah.
it is what it is. Like it's going to help him function, and we've had our trials and errors. There was um, one medicine he was on that made him he wrote a suicide note.
Mm.
So that went back to my, I should have never put him on that medicine.
Yeah.
And there was beef with me and my wife on that. But it's just the type of medicine. It's no different if we're on something that
Yeah.
our bodies react in a different way. Whatever chemical balance, may be off in somebody, may not be off with this person. So
Mhm.
we got him switched, and now he's again 14-year-old functioning. high functioning young man, ninth grade. Shout out to him.
Yeah.
Got a 3.6,
Ooh,
first grade period.
tearing up.
He's been doing well. Um, he's again he is about one thing I love about this kid. He has a heart for people
Mm,
that I wish not saying I don't have it, but he leads with I'm gonna love you, trust you, and I don't know nothing about you.
right,
I'm gonna
right.
lead with that. Versus sometimes we lead with, well, you got to prove
You
to
got
me
fruit. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
not like that. So
Nah, yeah,
all that to say, man, it's been a challenge, but I can look back and I'm like, man, Lord needed us to go through something
yeah.
for this 8-year-old that was behind me, which is total different
The
story.
terrorists that came
Yeah, the
behind.
terrorists. Yeah, the terrorists.
Oh, nice. So let me ask this in line with that. There's a young dad out there, maybe watching this
Yep.
episode, um, that is maybe figuring out
Mhm.
that autism
Yeah.
is a potential.
Hmm.
What's the suggestion? What's the advice that you give him? Because
Yeah.
I can only
Yeah.
imagine the fear, the worry, the
Hmm.
disappointment,
Yeah.
all those
Yeah.
things. But what is your
Yeah.
advice to him?
Um, Lean into those feelings. And I say that because I tried to run from them. I just had a conversation with a young brother the other day. We are taught. I keep saying, where does this come from? But it's just passed down to generations that if we aren't got our hands to the plow, our feet to the plow, like if we're not just in this working mode, that like those feelings subside, but they don't.
Mm,
They never go away. Um, Especially being where I was mentally of, well, I didn't want children. And I said that, again, because of a lot of that comes from I didn't want because I thought it was a curse
mm,
that a behavioral curse that was in the blood of our my the Hartley gene. I said I didn't want to put anybody in harm's way of something that's negative in that perspective. So I'm
hmm.
like, I didn't have the greatest upbringing. So I'm like, why would I want to pass that on to somebody else?
Right.
So I had those thoughts, young father. I've had those thoughts of not good enough. Had them thoughts of where the money gonna come from.
Hmm.
Had them thoughts of I didn't have a great example.
Hmm.
Lean into those things. Lean into them because they'll be the very foundation you need to grow into the person that you're going to become. So that would be my point. And then avenues like this, since um, social media is what it is.
Yeah.
Like you're on it.
Yep.
Find something that's not gonna make you just laugh,
Yeah.
and find something that's not just going, you know, whatever. Find something that's gonna make you think.
Yeah.
Find something that's gonna make you ponder. Find something that's gonna make you sit. Podcasts like these, and it's millions out there.
Hmm.
But I'm gonna suggest this one. But find those kind of podcasts and speakers that are being honest and being transparent, and that's what I needed at that young age.
Right.
I was blessed to have a group of brothers um, that like so we call ourselves the entourage,
Okay.
based off of the HBO special. Um, every Sunday we would get on the phone, Zoom. This started in COVID. Um, get on the phone or Zoom, sometimes phone call, just have conversations about
Yeah.
like look up. Oh man, we'll be on the phone 3 hours. Um, so young father, find you, and it's hard for us black men to trust.
Hmm.
Um, but once you do, and I was one of those individuals that it was hard for me to find people that trust because again, I had daddy issues.
Right.
So I'm like, you're no different than the black man that said he loved me.
Hmm.
He's no different. But once I got that space, find you some brothers, some your age, some older,
Hmm.
that will be able to tell you how it is. So that would be my advice. Lean into those emotions, but
Hmm.
make them step stools and foundations of what you thought you were going to be, but now you realize who you can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Um, Thinking through your space as fatherhood, right? What have been maybe what's been one of the biggest fears that you
Mm.
had
Yeah.
as a father? Like
Hmm.
as you're
Hmm.
raising
Yeah.
and maybe it's in lines of,
Hmm.
you know, the needs that you know your children are
Yeah.
going to have, the
Mhm.
differences between your
Mhm.
children as well. Like,
Mhm.
what was been one of the big fears for you?
So yeah, and it's the helicopter parent has been a fear of mine that I'm going to parent quote unquote too much,
Okay.
um because I'm so, and I don't know if I've shared this before, going back to the Ghostbusters analogy that I gave. So that shirt, me buying it was me saying those ghosts that I used to chase
Hmm.
of I'll never be good enough. My father didn't love me. All these things. I got past those. I finally had that point where I'm like, I'm not chasing those. I'm breaking them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm a Ghostbuster. Kind of when Jordan said he used to chase stuff that, but people would never say him. He needed motivation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I found myself finding motivation in those things that I thought was me or were me,
Hmm.
and those codes of you'll never be good enough, you'll never be a good father, like they're broken.
Yeah.
Um, but where I do struggle is sometimes that 8-year-old boy in me, and
Yeah.
I've referred through the years, you'll hear me. I always refer to this 8-year-old boy because that was the pivotal year or time in my life where I remember speaking or having a voice
Yeah.
that didn't get heard.
Mm.
I remember. So sometimes I parent not necessarily to my 14 or 8-year-old. Sometimes I'm parenting back to me, that
Yeah.
8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
And I get in a struggle with that because my 8-year-old boy is not like that. My 14-year-old boy is like, they don't know from my stories of where I've come from,
Right.
and the heartache and the disappointment and waiting at the front door till dad gets there and he's a no call, no show. And he does they don't know that life.
Yeah.
So I'm always fearful is parenting to the old me
Hmm.
and not the two blessings that I have in front of my face. So
Yeah.
sometimes I have to realize like the very thing I prayed for,
Right.
I'm living it and I'm walking in it.
That's it.
So be appreciative, be
Hmm.
thankful that you said you never wanted kids, now you got them,
Yeah.
and man, look at them now.
Yeah.
So just being, I would say definitely just being present in the moment, and just again, just enjoying them because I remember when they were born, and as you know, man, in a minute, in the blink of an eye, they're wearing your shoes,
Right.
they're wearing your clothes, they're doing all those things. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's phenomenal advice. Even as I'm sitting here
yeah,
thinking about
yeah,
my own experience, my own children, my
yeah.
own things, you do have those whispers and
Right.
those ghosts, right?
Yep.
Of
Mm-hmm.
things that have been said,
Right.
things that you've dealt with,
Mm-hmm.
things that you've heard, things you've experienced,
Yep.
that live on, and they do drive you. I mean, I
They
can
sure
think
do.
about my own
Mm-hmm.
moments with
Yep.
a couple of my family
Yep.
members that said, "Oh, we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna do this with you, we're gonna
Yep.
do that with you," and
Mm-hmm.
then you standing
Yep.
by the door like,
Yep. 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 Yep.
"I'm not here
Right.
yet. You
Right.
said you was gonna be
Right.
here an
Come.
hour
Yep.
ago." And
Mm-hmm.
the funny part
Yep.
about it,
Mm-hmm.
or not, or lack thereof, right? To your point of parenting to that,
Mm-hmm.
I do catch myself now saying,
Yep.
I don't want to be that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't want my child to say, "Dad, can we do?" And I
Correct.
say, "Yeah, yeah, we'll do,"
Yep.
and then I don't
And then
do
you
it.
don't. Right.
And I
Right.
don't follow through
Yep.
because what does
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
establish for their life?
Come on.
What
Come
ghosts am
on.
I putting
Come on.
into their
Come on.
life?
Come on. Come on.
So no,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that
Yeah.
analogy.
Yeah.
I think that is a wow. I've
Yeah.
never thought about it that way, but
Dude,
that's it.
and ironically, that's literally like when I commit to something with them,
Yeah.
um, and it's crazy. I kind of go back to like when we first start getting their haircuts, and my wife took them for the first time, and I was hot. Like, you don't do that. Like, I wanted to create patterns that I never
Yeah, that you
had.
didn't have. Yeah.
So things like that. Yeah. So if I'm gonna say I'm gonna do something like for that exact reason, I think if I do something and we don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
that what did that 8-year-old boy feel? You
Yeah.
don't want them to feel that pain
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
No, agree. Your thoughts, kind of continuing here, but your thoughts, what are we as dads missing today? Right?
Mhm.
Like when you
Mhm.
look out amongst your peer
Yeah.
groups, amongst the
Yeah.
people that we interact with,
Mhm.
right? What are we missing
Yeah.
today? What are
Yeah.
fathers, what marks are we
Yeah.
missing?
So I wish I could take this quote and trademark it. It wasn't mine. I saw it on social media one time. We're missing the front porch.
Mm,
The front porch is where you got to see what's going on in the street. You got to hear those experiences. We're missing that. We don't have front porches. I know I don't. I
Same.
have a walkway to get to my door, and that's it. One chair can sit there, but if it's one chair, it's gonna block it's gonna block
Right.
everything.
Nobody's coming
I,
in and out the
I get
door.
so mad because when you get a food delivery or Kroger's
Yeah.
or something, and I can't even get open the door to get out. But let me get off my soapbox. But we're missing that front door presence, which is I think about you know my grandmother. Now I was never close to well my grandfather on my mother's side. My mom's dad passed away before I was born. Um, my grandfather who was Roosevelt the first,
Hmm.
Suge, um, he was just hard working. Like didn't have time for the conversation.
Yeah.
Like I'm working all these hours. This is what you're getting. You're getting the roof over your head. This is whatever. So didn't get that conversation from him. Same with, again, like I shared with my mom. Well, my mom did teach me, even though she worked. She showed me how to be present.
Hmm.
So we hear this thought process all the time. It's not about the presence we give you; it's about
Right.
your presence.
Right.
Okay, my mom was present for everything. She worked 8 to 4 at a doctor's office, cleaning job, normally 7 to 12. So I would see her in the morning, wouldn't see her again until the next morning.
Mm.
Friday night football, she made sure that second job that she worked, I'm just gonna go in 10, 11 o'clock, whatever, whatever. So she showed me at a young age of what it's like to be a present parent. So tying all that together, we're
Hmm.
missing the front porch. We're missing mom. We're missing dad sitting down having those conversations. Now conversations are through social media, and I sound like I'm the old man in the room now. But man, it's we're not talking.
Yeah.
We're not talking. Um, and I've tried to implement these times with my boys when we go get our hair. When I say we, they get their haircuts. Uh,
Wait a
where
second
we
now.
just have a question and answer.
Yeah.
I normally ask a question in the car
Yeah.
just to get a spike of where they're at, where we're thinking.
Yeah.
So we're missing that. We're just missing conversation. We're missing the paths of knowledge.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, so that's I would say that's where we're missing the mark because some of us, like again, I didn't, you didn't either, probably didn't. Um, we didn't. No, we've seen a lot of fathers in our lives, or
Hmm.
uncle that was a father, or
Hmm.
somebody. But the playbook and the handbook is different when it's yours.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm missing. That's what I was missing. I didn't have anybody to say, "This is what you're gonna feel."
Hmm.
Nobody to say, "You know what, you're gonna deal with your postpartum too." You're gonna also struggle with you didn't have this responsibility before.
Hmm.
Now you do.
Yeah.
Nobody talks about nobody. We're catering to the wife, to the girlfriend, to the female,
Hmm.
and not saying that's like to slight it.
No.
But we were focused on the body and the care of the woman. But nobody told me that like I was going to be struggling with how am I going to provide? How am I going to be here? How am I going to be
Absolutely.
this? How am I going to be right? So that's what's missing. Just
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah.
The
No.
conversation.
I feel that completely. And my wife and I have had that conversation before. Our situation was a little different
Yes.
than
Yeah.
some when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to our firstborn and
Mm-hmm.
her being born so
Mm-hmm.
early.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really have a lot of
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
to think about
Mm-hmm.
anything other than sitting in that NICU for
Yeah.
127
Right.
days,
Right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it is very much a situation where we as fathers need to have that conversation, right? We need to talk
Mm-hmm.
to one another,
Yep.
need to
Yep.
communicate. And I think
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the irony is that on every one of these episodes that we've
Mm-hmm.
talked to great dads, we've all said that same thing. We need to
Yeah.
talk to each
Yeah.
other.
Need to talk.
We need to
Yeah.
have this
Yep.
communication. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful for
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
sharing that because I think that is key. We're going through a lot of stuff.
Yes, we are.
And a lot of times we do cater to our spouse, our
Mm-hmm.
partner, the
Mm-hmm.
other person
Mm-hmm.
that's on that,
Mm-hmm.
and you forget about where you are.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
forget
Yeah.
about the things that you're
Mm-hmm.
going through.
Yeah. Yep.
And to that vein, I want to ask you a question. In your experience as father, have there ever been moments where you just felt like alone? And how did you work through that process
Yeah.
as dad?
So the alone piece would have come from we have two healthy breathing living, but we also lost two. Um Layla was our first. Um, that was a lonely spot. Did not know what, we had all these dreams, aspirations for her, super excited. Um, then that 8-year-old boy again. See, you said you weren't gonna have no kids. You're gonna be disappointed. So it was a lonely spot. Getting to the point, and the problem is it was a call like no other. Hey, my feeling well. We go to the hospital. Her blood pressure is like 180 over 100 something. It's high,
Wow.
and they're like pre-eclampsia. We
Mm-hmm.
gotta handle this. Um, I made I was asked a question, and you talk about lonely,
Mm.
because this is, we transparent on this show. I'm
Yeah,
not I'm
that's
not
it.
gonna hold no punches. Um, I had to make a decision, and I was asked to make this decision. Do I want to try to save the baby or save my wife? And Lord have mercy. Um, I said to my wife, we can make other kids. I can't lose you. So we made that choice. So we did deliver. Layla just didn't grow. And the funk and depression that I felt because I was, again, I needed to be there for my wife. I
Yeah.
needed to be there. She's experiencing loss. Um, but I'm over here bleeding too, but I'm just putting band-aids on it.
Yeah.
But I'm bleeding. Beyond lonely. So we get to the point where we start, uh, we conceive, we have a child, and we lose another one after our 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
He might have been 4 or something. We lost another one. And I'm just like, what did I do?
Mm.
Like, God, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like 2 times? But then I found out I wasn't alone. And this is where the communication piece comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Have a good friend in Texas that this probably built our relationship. He had dealt with the same thing, and I
Yeah.
didn't know it.
Yeah.
Didn't know. He handed me a book that talked about loss and just became a resource. So that would probably be the time where I thought I was by myself. But then reality is like, and this is just kind of just everything. Even with getting into these circles of men, and while I talk about how critical it is
Mm-hmm.
for us to be in these circles, because you realize, well, you know what? It ain't as bad as I thought. I'm not the only one stressing over
That's
this
it.
thing.
That's it.
I'm not the only one feeling this kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the only one doing this thing. Like, you start understanding there's a circle community out there, so you don't have to feel or be lost.
Right.
But that was probably when I was at my lowest, just not being able. It's nothing like, and you understand, it's nothing like being a father
Mm-hmm.
and you can't do nothing about a situation. As you know, Wash Dash, we're superheroes every day.
Right.
You ain't a superhero in that spot.
Mm-mm.
Superheroes fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Superheroes do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that was a low spot for me. That was a
Yeah.
painful spot. Um, so yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
the interesting thing, Trey, for as long as we've known each
yeah,
other, that's the first time I realized
yeah,
you and I had the same experience.
yeah, man. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that it is truly something when you hear another father say, I had to make a decision. I had to
yeah.
choose which route to go.
Mhm.
And although you know your wife is there with you and you know she's
Yeah,
making that choice and
yeah.
you know she's, looking at you to really be that
Mhm.
superhero and
Right,
put that cape
right,
on,
right.
the cape is not bulletproof.
Yeah.
I don't care what
Come
they
on,
tell you.
boy.
I don't care what they tell you.
If I had a tray, we gonna be
Listen,
passing offering at this point. That's that. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
bulletproof.
It's not. It's not. Yeah.
But in that, I think one of the big
Mm,
things is in sharing with one another, you do find that serum to help fill in some of those holes. You
yeah.
do find that health and that
Mhm,
love and that communication
yeah.
between the community
Mhm.
to help you fill in
Right.
some of those
Right.
holes.
Right.
And realizing, just as you mentioned, you found out there's somebody out there
Yeah.
that was just like
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
There was somebody else that
Yeah.
was just dealing with that
Yeah.
situation.
Mhm.
And I'll say, because I don't
Yeah.
often
Yeah.
do this
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this show,
Yeah. My fault
listen, no,
for
you
pulling something
good.
out of
You
you, bro.
good. to that
Yeah,
dad
yeah,
that is dealing with a miscarriage,
yeah,
dealing with
yeah,
a
yeah,
a loss of life after birth, a
yeah,
loss in general in that
yeah.
space, you are not alone in that.
Right.
There's two
Yeah,
gentlemen
yeah,
here
yeah,
that have been there, that have gone through it. That's the whole point of this
yeah,
podcast.
yeah, man.
But you are not alone in that, and there
Right,
are
right.
resources, there are people that you can talk to.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, there's not many situations as a dad
Yeah,
that the cape isn't bulletproof for, other
yeah,
than that.
yeah. You're right.
We can
Yeah,
bounce a lot of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
We can take a
yeah,
lot of hits.
yeah,
We can take a lot of decisions, but that life
yeah.
loss
Hmm.
that was born from
Yeah.
you
Hmm. Yep.
is a difficult one.
It's huge. And I'll say this too to that point, B. Um, Fathers out there, like it does get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll never forget my two. I shout them out every time because they're still living within me.
That's it.
They're still my guardian angels. But it does get better. Doesn't replace the fact that you may have more children. It doesn't replace that loss. But what it does do is you realize that you start understanding that how fragile life is. So live it with respect, live it to the fullest, and just understand just that at any moment things could be taken from you. So I speak my truth now. Like, before, like, I wouldn't talk about it, but now, again, we talked about that then. Like, how do we get back to not feeling alone and feeling isolated? This is what we do. So, young father, like, if this has happened, like Brother B said, like, you'll be fine. You'll
Yeah.
be fine. But if you don't have a network, all that stress stays in you, all those thoughts stay in you, and those are the things that kill us.
Yeah.
That kills us. So it's venting is venting is, and I remember a guy said, man, like, I don't need to say nothing.
Yeah.
I just need you to listen.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. Because what has happened from that is, now, of course, now I'm this person that now has gone through it. So
Yeah.
what happens?
Yeah.
You start finding other people.
Yeah.
Or God starts placing people in your life, and oh man, you went this. This is what. So yeah, you just yeah, man. I could talk all day about
Nah, that,
that.
hey, listen, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's what's about.
yeah,
I to switch it a little
yeah,
bit as we kind of round out. When you think back to your childhood, and I know you talked about some of the things that weren't great.
yeah.
What is something that you remember that either you want as an experience for your boys,
Hmm.
something that you want to do with them, for them?
Hmm.
What does that look like for the Hartley boys?
So when I think we were 10. I mean, when I was 10, got on my first airplane ride.
Okay.
Um, TWA,
All right, all right.
Trans World Airlines, for those that have never heard that. Um, got to go experience California. I'm like, man, there's something outside of Wyandotte Lake. There's something outside of Lake Erie.
Right,
There's something outside of, Hocking Hills. Like, wow, there's something. Yeah, you mean the water is actually a different color out in there?
right, right. It's
So I got,
not
yeah,
brown.
it's not brown. So got to experience that at 10. And I said,
Nice.
once I got through myself of, Trey, you about to have these kids and you about to be this best father you can be.
Mm-hmm.
And in our space, man, you want, and I saw a reel the other day, and it was profound. The father was talking to the boy who he has a younger brother,
Mm-hmm.
talking about just, I need you to be better than your brother,
Mm.
like I want you to be better for me.
Yeah.
And the kid was like, well, I don't want to be better than you. He's like, no, 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 I need you to be better for me, because even in my age as your father, I'm getting thrills seeing you go through your best. That's going to
Right.
continue to push me to do my best,
That's
because
it.
I still have to prove something to you.
That's it.
So we were able and fortunate to take our kids on an international trip, their first one, a few years ago. And as stressful as it was taking kids to Mexico,
Ooh.
it was an honor.
That's great.
Because again, if I could have a model for 2025 and beyond, pause and live in the blessing that you asked for.
Yeah.
And again, like, to be able to take these boys because we can buy them materials. Like we struggled at Christmas time because these boys got everything.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my wife were like, no, we need to start creating memories.
Right.
So we did something. We end up going somewhere for Christmas. Seeing the smile on her face, I was like, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
Creating these memories that they still talk about because I want them to be better than me. I want you to be able to take your children, show appreciation. Like, yeah, you're good kids, you're great kids, but I want you to see something that I wasn't able to see.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a passport at so my oldest is 14. He had it at 12. My youngest had it at 6. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get my passport till I was in my 30s.
Yeah.
I'm on my second passport. These kids gonna have more passports,
Oh,
but
right.
that's what you want.
Right.
You want them to see um, what you couldn't experience. Um, and my mission in my life as a father is to break whatever generational curse that has been placed on the name, that has
Mm-hmm.
said that's been on the name of my family. I wanna bust them ghosts up.
There you go.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
you go.
yeah,
Hey, listen, well,
yeah.
you are doing a phenomenal job
I
at it.
appreciate you, brother. Me too.
I appreciate you
Yeah,
coming in,
yeah, man.
man, and
Yeah,
having this conversation
yeah,
with us
man.
and sharing. And you're gonna be back because there's more we gotta talk about at
Hey,
this
man.
point.
Listen. I'm
So
always support what you do here, brother.
I appreciate
At
you.
any notice, you let me know. Trust me, in a heartbeat, I'll come through, man. And
I
again,
appreciate that.
if for those again, I have to give this man his flowers because he's doing something that it's authentic, it's genuine, it's needed. Um, it's something that again I wish I had as a young father, but it's never too late for us old fathers. Like I'm still getting something when I listen to the podcast. For your episodes, like I'm still getting fed even in my 14th, almost 15th year of fatherhood,
Yeah,
still getting fed, and that's what it's about, man. So I want to encourage you, man. Like, know you took a break a little bit, life got busy, man, but where you can find time, man, keep this thing up, man, because you are a vessel, and continue to know that, man. You're
I
you're a
appreciate that.
vessel for people that may not ever get to the show.
Yeah.
People that are watching worldwide, you're a vessel, man. You're doing Lord's work over here, man.
Hey, I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
man. Proud of you,
I
brother.
appreciate you.
Proud of you. And thank you again, man.
Absolutely,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Well, that has been our episode here at Watch Dads. And you know what? I'm actually going to say something that I don't normally. The title Watch Dad podcast came from our bowling league.
Man.
And I had
Yeah,
to say that
yeah,
to make it
yeah,
full
yeah,
circle.
yeah.
It came from our bowling league. And the reason, as we mentioned before, is this podcast is here to have a conversation.
Yeah,
Our bowling league and our time together is there for conversation relief
yeah.
as
Yes, it is.
brothers and as fathers.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you being on this journey. Please make sure to reach out if you ever have just a conversation. You need to talk to somebody, need to go through something, or going through something and want to communicate. Let us know. We can get you in contact with these great fathers,
Yeah.
and be able to have that conversation. So thank you for following along. Until next time, we'll see you then.